Hello and welcome to the Nature Garden Podcast with me, Carl Steinson, and the Weekending Show team from Lionheart Radio. Thanks for joining us on a canny wee wander down the garden path and country lane with the birds and the bees and the flowers and trees. In this episode, what's in a name? Tom Cadwallender's delving into the wonderful world of local bird names, throssels, howlets and all. Steve Lowe brings us news of exciting Anglo-Saxon discoveries at an archaeological dig. And we're out and about with Tom Pattinson in the summertime garden. And we'll have some gardening jobs for the week with Tom P, all coming up on the Nature Garden Podcast. Northern England's been feeling the warmth as the heat wave continues and spreads up the country, and Tom Pattinson's enjoying summertime in the garden. Hello, Tom.
Hello. I'm out in the garden this morning. It's calm, it's warm, it's summertime, and that horrible wind has fallen without doing too much damage. In the background, you'll probably hear there's some rooks in the back field. The hay has just been mown and they're feeding on what they can find on the ground. We're on a flight path for heron and geese, but again, there's none going over at the moment. You might hear the coo-cooing or hoo-hoo-hoo of the collared doves which are nearby, and the wood pigeons, of course. And please forgive the distant aircraft as it flies over, way in the distance. But it's so lovely. I'm surrounded by fruit trees and bushes and vegetables because we grow as many of our own as possible. Over in the corner, there's a conference pear. I see it has fruit on, and the ever-popular Victoria plum. It's laden. Last year, there wasn't a lot of a heavy crop, but there were quite a lot, and that was because it flowers early in the year, late February, early March, and at that time I think the pollinating insects must have been grounded, but it is like, in keeping with the pear, it's self-fertile, so it always gives you a crop of sorts. The other main tree fruit in the garden, it's a group of 14 different apples, cooking and dessert. There are fruit bushes as well, of course. The strawberry plants, they're just giving food at the moment. They're a lovely crop this year. The raspberries have just started ripening, and there's red currants, black currants, gooseberry. They're just a little bit behind, but they'll catch up. All this lovely fruit. And I mention this because quite often someone will say to me, "Gosh, have you seen the cost of those fruit trees?" And my quick response is, yes, but how long are they going to last? Now, if we're looking whether it's a Victoria plum or a pear or an apple tree, think possibly it's going to cost you somewhere in the region of, if it's been pot grown, possibly around £50. £50. Okay. If it's bare-rooted in the autumn, an apple tree will cost you about 2/3 of that. But here's the point. How long is it going to last? Try 50 years if it's well looked after for a start. And then you can add the decades on after that. They're long-lived if you look after them. So instead of saying, I've just spent £50, think again and look at it from a point of view of how many years is it going to serve you, giving you a lovely crop. divide that into the £50, and at least you're just going to cost £1 a year. That's the way to look at it. The point is, though, really, if you want to grow a fruit tree and you get a lot of joy from it, apart from a lovely tasty fruits, then spend your money and enjoy it. It'll probably outlast you. Now, there's a thing. I'm looking across at those first. I'm looking across the way at the vegetable plot. Interestingly, we have 6 vegetable beds. Each one of them covers around 5 square metres, which gives us plenty of leeway for a range of vegetables. Big thing for me is, in winter, easy access to every one of those 6 raised beds, island beds I call them, because they're flagged pathways in between. So none of this trudging across the garden and with your wellies or your shoes and carrying mud into the house and getting into trouble. Lovely access, and quite often you can reach into the centre of each one of those. So nice setup, I think, or sensible setup for me anyway. And I've got quite a range over there, which I'm going to take a walk over and go from bed to bed, explain what's happening. Okay, see you in a tick.
You may have wondered how birds get their names. I know I find it fascinating, and I love the folksy and dialect ones that can change depending on where you live or were raised. And so, here's a man with a tremendous name to tell us more. Yes, it's Tom Cadwallender.
What's that I hear you say? Ha! Yes, it's my poor impersonation of a lapwing, and or a green plover, or a peewit. It's onomatopoeic, and it's the old Northumbrian name, perhaps just old northern name for the lapwing, the peewit, and it's just as the sound it's making. So it's onomatopoeic. Fascinating, really. I've always been interested in kind of the old names and the kind of the local names for birds. These days we've got standardisation right across the world, really. Common names and particularly scientific names. Now, scientific names are really sort of fixed right across the world, and it's just as well we have them that way. But common names are becoming standardised, and we're losing the local names, regional names, and kind of old kind of folklore names. And yeah, folklore plays quite a big part in naming of birds, really. And the lapwing is one in a case in particular. And another kind of Northumbrian, particularly Northumbrian, and indeed the Scottish borders, name for an iconic species that we have in Northumberland, and that is the warp, warp, WHOUP, and that is the curlew, a bird that we have breeding in Northumberland. It's the emblem of the Northumberland National Park. Is long decurved bill, quite large for a wading bird, but in wintertime we get them coming from Scandinavia. So they're known as warps. And a close relative of the curlew is the whimbrel, and just slightly smaller, and that is known as a little warp. And yes, we get them coming through on migration in spring and autumn, but particularly in autumn when they're coming down from the far north. So we have little warps and great warps, or just warps. And this is a name that's kind of really soaked into Northumbrian folklore and indeed in the borders and into Scotland. But it's that whole kind of series of names where they've kind of picked up on, they've worked their way through time, and they're now sort of fitted quite nicely into folklore. There's one really quite a common species that we have in Northumberland and indeed in the UK, and that is the wood pigeon. And its old name is a cushat. And some people still use it. Some country folk still use cushat. And that was sometimes called a cow shot. So I'm not quite sure what cow shot, which informed which, whether a cushat informed the cow shot or vice versa. And another kind of bird, relatively common bird from the farmland, is the yellowhammer, and that is known as a blakeling. And blake is an old Norse word for yellow. So you can see how it was connected through. We have the the Norse kind of influences coming through here, but we now know now as the yellowhammer, the little bit of bread, no cheese bird, which we're really quite familiar with. Now, thrushes have a kind of group name of throssels or throssels. Mistle thrush, which is the biggest of the thrushes that we have, is known as big throssel, and the ring-ousel, which is a blackbird of the uplands, is known as the heath throssel. Song thrushes are known as throssels, or were known as throssels, which is quite an interesting one. Crows are daups, and my old dad, long bless his soul, used to call our behinds, our bottoms, daups. But anyway, the old kind of common name for local name for crow was a daup. But sometimes these days it's all kind of lumped together as corby crows. But blackbirds, getting back to the thrushes, they were known as collie birds, and sometimes you think, well, actually, was that from the 12 nights of Christmas? The 4 calling birds or 4 collie birds. Sometimes they could have even been French, but that's another story. But collie birds, there's 10 and 20 blackbirds baked in a pie, so they could have easily been collie birds. Bullies are bullfinches. Gulls, some gulls were known as annets, and puffins, which has quite an interesting sort of link to it. They have been known as sea parrots or Tommy noddies, but they're also called ploughshares. But how the bill is shaped in a particular way, so it will actually pick that shape up. But also, a puffin was known as a clouter neb, and neb is named for the nose or the bill in that case. Tony-owls were have the kind of the howlet or howlet, hoo hoo. So that again is onomatopoeic peg. So that's an interesting one. And I give presentations about birds, wintering birds and summer birds on the Northumberland coast. And one species of summer bird that I think of quite particularly, and I use, and it's the tarry, which is the Arctic tern. Tarry as in Tarry. And it's thought, well, actually, perhaps it tarries as it kind of holds back before it dives into the sea for its prey, the sand eel prey. So tarries is an Arctic tern. But thinking about wintering birds, we have widgeon coming here. Widgeon are ducks from the far north, and they'll come here to winter. And their nickname or local name was whistler, and that comes from its call that it has. And if you're ever sort of going past a flock of widgeon on an estuary or a river, you'll hear them go whoosh, 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 which is whistling, and they get the name whistlers because of that. Another bird that winters in Northumberland, but in small numbers, and it's quite important for, and that is the Brent goose. And the Brent goose has been known as the aware goose. Back in the old times, some seaweeds were known as ware, and it's down to the habit of the Brent geese. They feed on zostra or seagrass or just seaweed, basically. And so, yes, it got the name of the ware goose. So it's absolutely amazing, really. And the razorbill, which is a relative of the puffin, that is known as an auk, as part of the auk family. Well, you think, that's a funny old word. An auk is a Norse word, and it comes from drunk, and it's regularly used as an expression for drunk as an auk. I've never heard that, mind, but it's I've been told it's the case. And I'm just hearing a blue tit behind me. I don't know if you can hear it there, this little rattling noise it has. And an old name for blue tit is a biting tom or billy biter. Oh, fascinating that. Yeah, it really is. And if you go into the upland rivers in our part of the world, in our Northumberland part of the world, and you see the dipper or the water ouzel, as it's sometimes called, or sometimes even called the Bessie ducker, which is quite amazing. I find that absolutely amazing. fascinating, that really. So there's a huge number of these kind of local birds, and you kind of, the one that we kind of come back to all the time, I think so anyway, is Cuthbert's duck or Cuddy's duck, which is a Northumbrian expression for the common eider, the eider that we have breeding on the Northumberland coast. But in Shetland, it's known as the dunter, which comes from the eider itself comes from the old Danish spelling of the Icelandic name. So it's the dunter. But anyway, we'll finish on the classic sort of Cuddy's duck or a Cuthbert's duck. The ooh bird, brilliant. So there is some kind of merit in trying to learn these kind of local names and keeping them alive and live in folklore anyway, which is absolutely fascinating. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the little excursion through some of the local Northumbrian names for our birds, or some birds anyway. There's loads more to go at. Next time, perhaps. Bye now.
Tom P's making the most of the beautiful summer weather and taking stock of the garden and his raised beds, so let's pop back and rejoin him on his garden tour in the Northumbrian sunshine.
Okay, I've arrived at bed 1, and this has sweet corn on the cob. The flower spikes are there, and the side shoots or cobs are just starting to form. It stands 2/3 of a metre high, tall at the moment, and it's swift, which is a good variety for the north of England. If you notice, if you're standing here, it's in a square, a block, 5 by 5, 25 plants. That's because it's wind pollinated, and when there's a slight breeze, they help one another. And each one, without fail, by about the beginning of August, will have 2 fat cobs on each one. So you can imagine the starters for an evening meal. That will carry us through quite a while. If you haven't tasted them before, steamed or lightly cooked with a knob of butter on them, oh my goodness, what more do you need after the starters? So that is there. Packet of seed costs $2.50, and sweet corn for weeks on end. Grows well here. Next to it, I have a courgette defender. Now, the thing about courgettes is, it's laden with small courgettes. They're best eaten between about 10 to 15 centimetres long. The shorter they are, tastier, because you've got to keep picking them. Now, I've given myself a problem here because I have 7 plants set out, and each one of them at the moment, overseeing them, they've got about 2 or 3 courgettes. So of course some go to friends, neighbours. If you leave them too long, just for a week, they've turned into marrows. So I don't want marrows at the moment. Later on in the year, I like some marrows because I love stuffed marrow as a meal. Cut them into circles, take the central seeds out, and put the food into those. Beautiful. So they're growing well, very well at the moment. On the same bed, I have a group of sunflowers, 4, because I love some flowers in the vegetable plots as well. And I've got some spray chrysanthemums, and one of them started flowering. The rest will follow it. Over the way, bed number 2, I have the runner bean. It has those scarlet flowers on it. It's climbed up to the top of the 6-foot tall poles, and small beans are just starting to form. Continues with spinach in 2 rows here. Spinach which is perpetual. I bought a packet of seed for about £2.20 with lots of seeds in. Put a couple of rows in, and it started producing them. Within a month, we could eat some of the spinach leaves. It'll keep on doing this. I clip it to ground level as winter comes, and then it stands and shoots up again, and they keep us going till about March, when we're thinking about sowing again. So year-long supply of spinach. Next to it is the dwarfing broad bean, which is the Sutton, a beauty. Salad bed number 3, French breakfast, radishes, and rather than grow hearting lettuce, if you want to grow a lettuce that forms a strong heart, pick it and eat it within a week, fair enough. Plenty of seeds in the packet. If not, if you're happy to have cut and come again, which is better value for money, you can have a salad bowl and a red salad bowl. And I have those. And there's one patch over here. They're about 30 centimetres tall, fresh as anything because we keep watering it to avoid the bitter taste. We've been eating that for about 4 or 5 weeks now. And this shorter one, just about 15, 20 centimetres tall, it's coming up as a crop to follow it. So there's a continuity of salad leaves. Bed 4, that lettuce, some onions. It's a Kelsey onion, not grown for show in this occasion, grown to store, beautifully soft and sweet. And, there's some sweet peas up a cane, about 6 feet tall, the cane, and in red and pink and white. And my goodness, the fragrance in this garden bed of vegetables. Number 5, that's the asparagus. This is Carnivus colossal. I didn't buy crowns of asparagus. They're pretty expensive, actually, thinking about cost. I bought a packet of seed 2 years ago, and now we had the first taste this April-May period. First taste of the spears coming up. We've left them after about 2 or 3 weeks. We didn't take too much away to eat first time. Left them to grow, and they've got this beautiful foliage, delicate foliage, and that's approaching we're just over a metre tall now, and there's so many of them in this bed. Keep mulching them, keep watering them, and you're flying. There are carrots under cover, and next to them the parsnips, and then in the corner, bed number 6, wow, strawberries. Made this bed for them 2 years ago. Plenty of organic matter in, been watering them, and we just picked 6 or 7 kilograms, and they've been turned into preserve, into jam. So the jam pan's out. We've got the other soft fruits to think about. Put any surplus through the jam pan, and we're flying. At the moment, Wimbledon might be enjoying their strawberries and cream, but so are we in this garden. Cost very little. They're sending out runners now. Those runners will root and plant up the young plants, keep them young, because I never keep them over 3 or 4 years. Keep planting young strawberries. Oh, wow. Can we manage a cup of tea, do you think, Carl? Is there a kettle round?
Archaeology can open up a window on the world as it was, a chance to explore how we lived in days gone by. And the dig at Felton, Northumberland is revealing more and more about Anglo-Saxon life. War Steve Lowe's a volunteer there, and he's been chatting about the site and the finds with Dr. Jane Harrison from Community Archaeology North.
The site is really quite extraordinary. And this year, which is our 4th time back here digging, has been just as good as all the others, with an equally fantastic group of volunteers and field school students and people who've come from very close by and people who've come from further afield. It's been really good. But what it is a site for which all the archaeology is from the late 6th, so the late 500s, through to the late 9th, so the late 800s. So it's mostly Anglo-Saxon.
That's pretty early.
It is.
But it's also an area where we don't know very much.
Exactly. And that is the key thing about it. And the really exciting thing about it is that because here in Northumberland, it's not a highly populated county.
No.
It might not feel like it sometimes, but actually there's been relatively little development, except around Newcastle.
Yes.
And on the fringes of some of the villages. A lot of it, though, before archaeology was required to be recorded.
Of course, you never think about that, actually.
No. And so the knowledge of our archaeology, particularly for that period, Roman period, fantastic.
Yeah.
But that following period, the early to middle Anglo-Saxon period, before the Norman conquest, we know relatively little about, really. We know about Gefren.
Mm-hmm.
There are one or two other sites, but not that many. And yet it's absolutely a key period for Northumberland, which at that point was the northern part of Northumbria, which literally was north of the Humber.
Yeah.
So it was Yorkshire and Northumberland, effectively, and we're Bernicia, the northern part. But it's the part of the world that produced Bede, and all those, the Lindisfarne Gospels, Lindisfarne, the community of St. Cuthbert.
Yeah.
And during the 6th, 7th, 8th centuries, kings of this part of the world, were rampaging across sort of the rest of England.
Yeah.
Had huge power, huge influence.
So Newcastle away.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And yet somehow, because we don't have the archaeology and also the historical records, the documents, the written records are really slight. And most of the surviving ones are written from the perspective of Wessex and Mercia, so the Midlands.
Yeah.
So we're getting their perspective. What's changed?
Exactly.
On the northeast.
Yeah.
And there are some very short references in the Anglo-Saxon chronicles. There's Bede, of course, and history of St. Cuthbert. There's a few things, but not an awful lot. So there's a huge blank in a really important part of the development of our area.
Yeah.
And this site is adding a really important piece of history.
Brilliant.
And that's what made people coming to visit last week so excited.
Yeah.
Is that here we are, near Felton on a beautiful, like the rest of the county, it's such a striking landscape. Here we are, empty field, there's a few houses, and actually what it was in the 7th century in particular was the heart of what was called an estate, and that's a quite a large land area. And we think that this estate went from the coast to about Brinkburn.
Okay.
And took in the north and south sides of the river. And it worked with the farms and hamlets across the area, and then linked into other estates across this part of Northumberland. And what they were doing was working together to create a local economy.
Okay.
So the rulers at that point would be a king and their nobles, and they ordered that, they organized it, they structured it, but they relied on the farms for meat, honey, mead, beer, cloth.
Yeah.
And it worked on barter, on tribute, on tax in kind, and the people who ruled moved around a lot.
Yes.
From one centre to another,
population.
Very, very, and that's something we forget about.
Yeah.
Very mobile population.
Yeah.
They'd have been using the river,
of course,
and the old Roman roads, and they moved around a lot. We've got records, historical records, which talk about even kings living in tents when they were on the move.
Yeah, yeah.
And one of the things that we suspect they might have been making here is, we know they were making cloth.
Yes.
Because we've got these wonderful finds of the remains of looms and beautiful clay loom weights. We've got a huge collection of complete clay loom weights.
Yeah, I'll never eat spaghetti hoops again.
No, they do look like spaghetti. They look really like spaghetti hoops or Cheerios.
Cheerios,
I know advertising
also
intended. Because Cheerios have got that slightly sort of grainy look to them.
Yeah,
so if you blow up a Cheerio, that's what they look like.
They do. And the volume of them here is amazing, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
But we've got the whole process. So in that period, this estate centre of an estate was clearly making cloth for a wider area. It's not industrial. It's not buying and selling. it's a linked economy. It's more like the black market,
right,
in the war, or the sorts of economies that would work under the radar, behind the Iron Curtain.
Yeah, sure.
It's like those. It's those sorts of things.
Yeah.
And these huge loom weights we're finding, they were clearly making really heavy duty cloth. But we've got the whole process. This season, we found a pit where they were storing clay,
right,
with some of the clay left in.
So that's raw clay then?
Yeah, raw clay, which comes from down by Thurston Burn.
Okay.
And they're keeping it damp in a big pit.
Yeah.
And it's brilliant, because you look at it and there's a sort of lump sticking out the top of this remaining bit of clay in the bottom. And you can see the mark of the spade where it's gone in to take it.
Well, you can see the mark of the spade.
It's there.
I'm only joking, because you can see everything. And it's amazing how they're very ephemeral. The marks that are left. It's a very sandy site, very acidic site, and it's a trial to dig in many respects. So you've got a lot of experience in that now, and I mean, that's the one thing. A lot of people have said the joke about can I borrow your glasses because you can see things, but it's not just an easy site. No,
and that's why I'm so grateful to all the volunteers and people who've and field school students who've come and dug with us, because it's not, you don't find very much.
No,
there's bone, there's clay, there's some iron artifacts, and there's a few starry finds, and we're working with the metal detectorists so that we make sure we collect all those up, but you don't find a lot, and it's hard. And the recording, the writing up of it, which they do on site, is challenging.
Yeah.
But they've been brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
And the other side of archaeology isn't just the digging, though. No. We call it digging, it's scraping, really, anyway, isn't it? But it's the post-excavation work. So there's still a lot to be done to unlock the whole story. Yeah,
because as you say, what we've got on site is different coloured sand with different sorts of things in it, effectively. It's highly unphotogenic, but just enormously exciting, because we can look out now, we're looking out the window at the field with great heaps of sand and soil that we've dug out, and what we would have been looking at would have been timber buildings built with big posts, little timber buildings with little sort of peaked roofs.
Almost like lean-tos.
There were sheds that they used for all sorts of things. If you had too many people with the visiting noble, you stuffed a few of the slaves in the shed. And there would have been smoke, there would have been pits, and there would have been little hearths out in the open, and there had been these fantastic ovens that looked like pizza ovens, where they were drying the weights out, the clay weights, after they'd made them. So they got the clay, they made them, they dried them out, and then they made the cloth with them. So all those bits of the process are here. And so you can kind of just that activity is now coming to life, because we've marked in the field where we found things in previous years, previous buildings, previous hearths, previous ovens, and it's beginning to look really quite busy.
It's busy, it really is busy, well, everyone remarked about that whenever I've taken anybody around. They've said, well, I didn't think it would be this big. And it is pretty big.
It is,
So, and we're in a field almost on the top of a hill, I think. Not quite on the top of it. And it's quite a windy site as well, isn't it?
It is, it's exposed.
So the extremes of climate would be something they would have had to deal with as well.
And I think it's here. I mean, it's quite interesting that the two big ovens where they were drying loom weights are a little bit down off the top.
Yes.
It's quite interesting. But they're here because it's so well connected. It's visible. I mean, they were a centre. It's like the kind of, the village hall, or the sort of somewhere where people gathered. They came to bring stuff to trade and exchange. They came when the noble or the king was here. They'd come and they'd discuss, they'd negotiate. There may have been some sort of royal justice given out. I mean, it's a centre.
And to the sound of War Blackbird, here's Tom with some things to be getting on with in the garden.
Well, it's jobs for the week time, and I'm in the greenhouse, which happens every single morning and last thing at night. We've got to make sure everything's doing well. Naturally, there's a tomato crop here. The first tomatoes are ripening. We've got 5 main varieties, which are popular. The Gardener's Delight and so on. And about 6 varieties which are new to me and novelties, the black tomato, etc. In the propagating case, I've just lifted the lid here. We've got I put about 20 stem cuttings in of the flowers we have here, the fuchsias we have flowering, and some petiole cuttings. That's petiole. This is the leaf and the leaf stalk. They look as if they're rooting. I've just checked actually one of the leaf stalks, leaf and the stalk attached. Just imagine how many fuchsias you can get with them by putting every single leaf in. A trick with that, by the way, if you're putting stem cuttings of anything in the garden at the moment, or stem cuttings in to root them, the stamens have got soft growth on them, so have some of the fuchsias out in the garden, and there are other plants there. Softwood on any shrubs out there, soak them first, and I mean for a couple of hours, so they're fully charged with water. Don't put droopy cuttings in, they'll just fade and fail. So soak them first, little tip which I use, and it works for me anyway. Looking around the tomatoes, they're watering. I'm watering them every single day and feeding them about once every 10 days. And they're doing quite well. The crop above me, the Black Hamburg and Madeleine Angevin of grapes, beautiful bunches here, and they have a way to go. The first one, Madeleine Angevin, it will ripen about the end of August, and the Black Hamburg follows beginning of September. I'm leaving them, keeping an eye on them. Any side shoots, they're still sending side shoots out. They do this all season, and you've got to nip those out so all the food goes into the bunches of grapes. The peach, I can just smell it, peregrine peach. You shouldn't touch them. I'm just touching this one. Some of them are so big because I thinned out the fruits, and I keep saying tennis ball size. Well, they're not. I took an image yesterday. The standard tennis ball type they're using at Wimbledon, I rested it between 2 of these, and they were dwarfing it. They're really big this year. Much smaller crop. I've got about probably 22 dozen peaches this time instead of 80 or something. And my gosh, it works. Beautiful. Just about ready to eat now. July, which is about on time. I've got the Streptocarpus here, a collection, 21 different varieties. They're doing well. And of course, on the top shelf of the greenhouse, I have Trudy Davro, white, tinted pink, and pink galore, and blue wave, and swing time, of course. They're beautiful. Just starting to flower now. So I'll leave the greenhouse and pop next door into the open. I soaked the floor this morning. By the way, I do it every morning. Out here in the garden, it's 20 degrees Celsius at the moment on the maximum minimum thermometer. In the greenhouse there, it's 26. 20 outside and 26 inside. I'm looking over. I've got a bed. It's about 8 metres long by 3 metres wide of potatoes, and they've all done well. Got 11 rows in. Sutton's Foremost, I've been digging there, and Charlotte, of course. Charlotte's a beautiful potato. Recently, because it's been so dry, I've had the hose out at night on these potatoes. They've been drooping, standing so like soldiers in the morning, drooping their haulms or shores, all the growth, down at night time. I kept it going for so long. Got to watch out for blight at the moment, which is those dog brown spots, and then the total collapse of the shores. It hasn't been that, but I've reached a stage where they've done their growing, and I've taken the hedge clippers and I've cut all the tops off. Now, the potatoes are safe underneath there. They're fine, so they're not going anywhere. I'll dig them as and wish we need them, but the foliage is gone. Good time to do that. I'm on the lawn. I see clover all over the lawn. What a good decision it was a few years ago to say, right, no weed killer on the lawn, no selective weed killer. Well, I'm looking round and the small bumblebees, masses of them, they're really benefiting from it. That makes me feel good. And when I mow it, I need Judy to walk along in front of the mower like the red flag act early on in the days of motor cars. Someone had to walk ahead of the motor car with the red flag. Well, none here, but I've got to be careful when I'm mowing it. I'm looking round, enjoying the shrubs, the hebe, and so are that many other shrubs in the garden, and that beautiful white Aruncus sylvester, the herbaceous perennial, and the flowers on the roses are brilliant. Keep deadheading those roses. Whatever you do, enjoy your gardening.
You've been listening to gardener Tom Pattinson, birder Tom Cadwallender from the British Trust for Ornithology, and Steve Lowe from the Cresswell Peel Tower at the Dig at Felton with Dr. Jane Harrison from Community Archaeology North. Don't forget you can listen back to all of our previous programmes via the Nature Garden podcast. That's the Nature Garden podcast. I'm Carl Steinson, thanks for listening and enjoy your gardening and time outdoors with nature. Bye for now.